Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world. Over the next 3 days, the top 32 Magic Pro League players and 36 challengers will attempt to forge their path to victory. $750,000 is up for the taking. And so is a seat at the Magic the Gathering World Championship. Good morning, bright and early. It is 8 a.m. on Saturday in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, where it is time to kick off day 2 of the Mythic Championship number 3. We had 68 players battling yesterday, brought down to 16 that remain on day 2. They will be re-entered into a brand new double elimination bracket, playing down to 4 who will head on to tomorrow's head on to tomorrow's gameplay, where they'll battle for $100,000 and that chance to get an invite to the World Championship at the end of the season. In case you missed any of the action yesterday at the Mythic Championship, let's take a look at what went down. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to hot and sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. We have 68 of the best players from around the world, 32 of which are from the MPL. 36 are challengers who are trying to make their mark on the Mythic Champion circuit.
I played 8 rounds of Magic today, 6 of them against MPLers, and those were the 6 rounds I won.
Well, at this point in the tournament, given that we're cutting to a day 2, it's all in line. It's that simple. A win gets you through. Yeah. And we got the good game and the concession. Marcio Carvalho is in to day 2.
I feel excited, of course. All I want is to play Worlds because I always want to play all possible tournaments, so let's see what happens.
Really impressive.
I guess I'm the only 6-0 from day 1, MC3, I suppose. It's not bad.
But you know what that means?
Greg Orange is through to day 2.
There is Jean-Emmanuel Duprat down on the bottom part of your screen. Now, he is the one playing Is It.
So I was 2-2 after round 4, and I had to rally back and win 4 in a row.
And an Arclight Phoenix, so boom, you take 9 damage.
I mean, this is a 2-turn clock. Shahar needs to find answers to the threats on the battlefield.
I just beat Shahar Shenhar and through to day 2.
And Jean-Emmanuel Duprat is going to be in to day 2. Wow, that was brutal.
I just had a feature match against Kentaro Yamamoto. He was playing white-greeny deck. He was very unlucky, and I actually won both games. And now I'm 6-1, and that means I'm going to be seeded into the top 16 tomorrow.
Hey everybody, welcome back to coverage of Mythic Championship 3. Marie Berthaldi, Day 9, Cedric Phillips hanging out with you here. Top 16 action coming at you today. Really exciting stuff. And for the first time, we are going to reveal the matchups for our top 16. So let's take a look at the bracket.
This was super exciting this morning to walk in. I think it was like 5 minutes ago that we all got to see this for the very first time, and what a lineup it is.
I mean, the 16 players that are through to day number 2 of competition are all fantastic players. Now we get to see them square off, what the breakdown is going to be, and I know we've got some exciting Magic coming your way.
If you want to see the greatest Magic played on the biggest stage, what more do you want? These names are incredible who've made it here to our top 16.
And I want to stress that there are 4 players, the MPL top rankers, that skipped past day 1 completely. Some recognizable names like Brad Nelson, Brian Braun-Duin, who we're going to actually see for the very first time today.
That's right. They have been relaxing in their hotel rooms, but now they have come to battle. Let's take a look at these individual matchups and see what decks the players have brought to the table. First up, here's one of your division winners, Ray Sato versus Raphael Levy.
And this is the matchup that it's almost surprising to see that this is going to be one of the first matches played. Boros aggro versus mono red. We've seen a few different Boros aggro setups, and I'm not sure what Ray Sato is going to be having in the sideboard. Most people are white weenie at their core.
Yeah, I mean, most people are splashing Experimental Frenzy like we saw yesterday from Kentaro Yamamoto. And what's going to be interesting about this is, you know, obviously Boros aggro, when it was on camera, it had some difficulty, but we've got 2 into day number 2 of competition for Raph Levy. Mono red, we know, is one of the best decks in the format.
Let's take a look at our next matchup here in our top 16. Who will be playing head-to-head Greg Orange, our undefeated player from yesterday, versus MPL member Jean-Emmanuel Deprat.
Well, for Greg, the story of this tournament's been Esper Control, and if we actually thought about it a little bit more coming in, it really shouldn't surprise you that he is crushing the tournament. He is an Esper Control master, arguably the person who's played Teferi Hero of Dominaria more than anyone in the entire room, maybe in the entire world. Izzet Phoenix is always a very close matchup, but it's hard to pick against Greg because he hasn't lost yet. Well, he's unbelievable.
Jean-Emmanuel Deprat showed such composure, needing to win 4 straight matches. And Izzet Phoenix is one of those decks where you're not really doing anything for a lot of turns, and then suddenly you burst out with 16 damage. So being able to set up and identify that several turns in advance, Jean-Emmanuel Deprat did such a remarkable job of that.
Let's take a look at our next matchup coming to you from the top 16, and this is a great one. Old Guard versus New Guard. Kai Budde versus Shahar Shenhar.
This is an interesting matchup. Kai Budde just has been playing spectacularly, and I know there's so many huge fans of his gameplay that are excited to see him as one of the first players to also qualify from day 1, moving on to day 2. But Shahar Shenhar has kind of a funny story. Lost his last match to Jean-Emmanuel Deprat and was, I think, the very, very bottom-ranked person
That's right.
to enter in through the tiebreakers.
And we can't forget 2-time world champion as well. Shahar has got the skills, no doubt, but it is Kai Budde we're talking about here. We're talking about the German juggernaut. Some people said he was washed up. No, he's still got it.
All right, let's move on to the next match here. We've got Brian Braun-Duin versus Marcio Carvalho, and this is a rematch, Cedric.
Well, you said it for me, Maria, and I'm very excited to watch this matchup unfold. This is a rematch from the World Championships in Seattle a couple of years ago where Brian was able to best Marcio then. We'll see if he can do it again now. His Esper Hero deck is an interesting choice. His hope, along with Brad Nelson, was that they didn't run an Esper Control, and, well, I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
Yeah, I think Brian Braun-Duin and Brad Nelson have the exact same Esper Hero deck list.
They do, the same 75.
They don't want to play against Esper Control.
All right, let's take a look at the next matchup. Ken Yukihiro, another division winner here, the Ruby division of the MPL, versus Simon Gerson.
Simon Gerson, with his unusual Simic ramp deck, is really hoping to go up against Esper Control type decks. And it's a Simic ramp that doesn't have Wilderness Reclamation, but still exploits the possibility of getting multiple turns in a row with Nexus of Fate. Now, I'm curious what your thoughts are on how that matches up against Ken Yukihiro's banned ramp deck.
Well, it's going to be a question of who can ramp harder. That's what this matchup is all about. Who can play their big expensive spells before the other player. That's what this entire matchup is going to be all about. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to see how that unfolds, because who's going to be able to play their big spells, their Hydroid Crises, their Nexus of Fates, so on and so forth. Whoever does that the most and the quickest is going to win the match.
Moving right along to our next matchup here, Matias Leverato, the story of our MCQ winner here, coming from behind to do so well in this tournament versus Li Shitian.
Well, this is bad news for Matias. This is the kind of matchup that Simic Nexus does not want to play against. There aren't a ton of these strategies in the field in Azorius aggro, but the fact that it's an aggressive white strategy with some counter magic after sideboard means that you can counter Wilderness Reclamation, you can counter Nexus of Fate, you can counter the majority of their relevant spells when they're trying to do their thing. It's going to be a tough road for our player there on the left that's had such a good tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it truly feels awful to play against hyper aggro decks when you're a Simic Nexus, but especially what you highlighted, the blue counters are very difficult specifically for Simic Nexus to overcome.
Let's take a look at the next matchup from our top 16, Shota Yasuoka versus Kentaro Yamamoto.
Well, I love Shota's deck for this weekend. He took Esper Control. It's not your stock one that we've seen so many players like Greg Orange playing this weekend. He's got a couple main deck copies of Bolas' Citadel, some copies of Revitalize. He's made a little twist, as he oftentimes does on a standard archetype. I think it's really going to benefit him not only in this matchup, but for the mirror matchups that he might run into later today. Boros aggro is a very, very good deck, but Esper Control has kind of flexed its muscles against it all weekend.
I mean, Yamamoto has lost his last 3 matches. He was, again, one of the 3-5-3 players to advance on to day 2. Lost all those matches against Esper Control post-sideboarding, having won game 1. And it was so brutal to watch, having 3 experimental frenzies in hand, not being able to cast them. I'm really interested to see if Yamamoto will change up the sideboarding plan.
All right, let's look at the last matchup from our top 16. Who will it be? Brad Nelson, division winner. Remember, this is the first time he's sitting down to play today versus John Rolfe.
Well, you thought that it was tough news for Brian Braun-Duin, who is, of course, playing Esper Hero against Esper Control.
Multiple bad matchups.
Same thing can be said here for Brad Nelson playing against John Rolfe, who's playing Esper Control. Their plan after they won their MPL weekly split was, let's play a deck, Hopefully we don't get paired against Esper Control because we think we can beat everything else. Both BBD and Brad Nelson have gotten paired against arguably their worst matchup. Doesn't mean they can't win, but they are realistic Magic players. They know this is tough, and fortunately for them, it's double elimination here on day 2.
And one of the big reasons why Esper Control is performing so well against Esper Hero is simply Kaya's Wrath.
Yep.
It was the type of sweeper that had sort of faded out of popularity, but so much of the story of day 1 was players who were bringing Kaya's Wraths, Esper Control heavy decks, just crushed.
It's a tough pairing, but again, that's why you got to be happy that this isn't single elimination right now. It's double elimination. So fingers crossed that things break their way if you're rooting for Nelson and Braun-Duin.
All right, well, let's take a look at our feature match that's going to come up in just a minute here. It's the one that we were pretty excited for coming into this. Brian Braun-Duin versus Marcio Carvalho. Esper Hero versus Esper Control.
You know, the list of Esper Hero that Brian Braun-Duin and Brad Nelson are both running have kind of an interesting mix. They both run 2 hostage takers. You have the was it Elite Guard Mage?
Elite Guard Mage, they have a couple copies of as well.
Yep. Also, that has some nice synergy with Teferi Time Raveler, being able to bounce it and return it back to the field for extra life gain, extra card draw. But a lot of this setup is more planning against a kind of creature-focused list.
Yeah, so the issue here with them is, you know, they've got these main deck cards here, as you mentioned, Hostage Taker, Elite Guard Mage, 2 copies of the Pirate, of course, 3 copies of the Human Wizard there, and Elite Guard Mage. These are cards that are geared towards beating aggressive matchups or mid-range matchups like the Mirror or Sultai Dreadhorde. You can see the construction of this deck. It is not geared towards beating Esper Control. Yes, they do have some cards that may help them get a bit of an advantage. Of course, the Planeswalkers, all 11 of them, and I don't want to forget about highlighting Command the Dreadhorde as well, but cards like Elite Guard Mage and Hostage Taker, Esper Control doesn't care about those. That's a Kaya's Wrath, that's a cast down. Those are easy cards to solve.
Yeah, you have 3 Tyrant Scorn, and I think it's really important to highlight there's a single copy of Command the Dreadhorde. Many of the players are running much greedier lists, anticipating that the games will go on longer, having 2 in the main, 1 in the sideboard, so doesn't mean that BBD is screwed by any measure. I mean, we have seen Hero of Precinct 1 dropping on turn 2 and just running away with the game.
Yeah, I mean, this will be difficult, no doubt about it. It is 3 games. There are sideboards involved, all that other good stuff, but they have certainly built their deck to be a certain subset of decks, and it is not this one. And you're going to see here with Marcio's deck list just how well situated he is against creature strategies. He's got 3 main deck copies of Kaya's Wraths. He's got some cast downs and 3 copies there. He can play a longer game with Search for Iskanta, and he has maybe the number that matters the most is he's got 2 copies of Command the Dreadhorde, where Braun-Duin only has 1. So he even gets that Command the Dreadhorde advantage. That's how you can know this matchup is so tough for BBD.
And I mean, we can probably count more on both hands and both feet the number of dead cards that you can see in a lot of these lists. But here, 3 copies of Oath of Kaya is going to be great in game number 1. These cast downs, these Moment of Cravings, all going to be useful in game 1. Basilica Bellhaunt going to be useful in game 1. Now, when you go post sideboarding, sure, you want to maybe adjust, remove some of these, but it's such a leg up to know that when you go into that first game, almost all the cards you're happy to see when you're playing that Esper Control list.
Look, it's going to be an uphill climb for BBD, no doubt about it. This is going to be a lot of fun, though, because this is a World Championship rematch, as we talked about at the top. You know, these players played in the finals of the World Championships in Seattle. It was a great match. That match was like 2 hours or something.
It was so long.
Yeah, it was a super long, fun back and forth match, and I remember Brian winning it, and there was some jubilation, but he took off the headset and he was like, it's finally over. Like, thank goodness, this was a marathon. We'll see if that happens again.
And I loved in the interview yesterday, he said, I'm used to playing 2-hour games because I like to play stupid decks. And
that's if you've watched his stream, you know that's true. So Brian might be in for a long game here. Might not be the kind of long game that he really wants to play. Again, when they played in the World Championship final, there's a lot of interaction between the two. Hopefully for Brian, there's a lot of interaction, and maybe he can steal a couple games here.
Now, in case you are unfamiliar with our competitors because you didn't see day 1, or if you're like the rest of the observers, you haven't seen BBD play yet, we got a chance to talk to them. Let's meet the players in the first match of the day.
My name is Marcio Carvalho, and I'm from Portugal.
I'm Brian Braun-Duin from Seattle, Washington. I got here by winning my division in the MPL weekly play by playing Esper Hero every round and beating 6 of my 7 opponents with it.
I'm so happy to make top 16. My goal is always to win. You have to go for small steps. First top 16, maybe top 4, then win.
I just want to enjoy myself playing Magic and appreciate and celebrate when I do win.
I love competitive Magic. I love the trying to be the best. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be like the best player in the world.
I think this is like an insane opportunity for me, so I'm really focused on not just floundering in the top 16, but actually making it into the top 4, hopefully even winning the tournament.
Winning would be amazing for me because I always play second. I have that thing of that chip on my shoulder that I always play second in so many events, and I want to crush one. I want that trophy.
Hey friends, Becca Scott here, and I cannot wait to introduce this first featured match to these players to come to the stage. Right now we have your 2016 World Champion. He got a bye straight to day 2 of this because of his performance in the Spark Split. It's Brian Braun-Duin! Woohoo! The runner-up in that very same World Championship has a chance for a rematch right here and now. Marcio Carvalho! To guide you through this match, we have Marshall and Paul in the booth.
Thank you, Becca, and welcome back to the booth here at Mythic Championship 3. Marshall Cyclic with Paul Cheon. And Paul, I am going to need you to guide me, to help me through this, because the last time that I covered these two gentlemen play against each other in a high-stakes match like this was back at the World Championship in Seattle on 2016, where they met in the finals. Now, that was a best-of-5 untimed. Right. I barely survived that, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it was a grind fest. Both players just playing a collect the company-based deck where, you know, you just had these boards where just both sides just had 10+ creatures on the battlefield, but nobody could attack. And you had to just keep waiting and waiting and waiting until finally Brian just found the right tools to actually get there. But it's just one of those things where, I mean, 2-hour matches, we can't have that here this time around because we're playing Arena, but I mean, I know Marcio for sure wants his revenge here because, you know, like Marcio said, second place all the time. He really wants to win this tournament. Yeah, and I mean, if you were to really break down Marcio's career, I mean, that was the biggest loss of his career, right? That was for the World Championship, and of course, you know, the difference there is now we refer to Brian Braun-Duin as, you know, former world champion. It's just, it's the highlight of his resume as well. But as you said, thankfully for me, I mean, you know, normally we go out to a nice dinner after show wraps, and then, you know, like, okay, you know, go have some fun. I went straight to bed. It was in Seattle where I live, and I'm like, see you guys. Just went to bed. Too tired, but that won't happen here. Is that what you're telling me? Yeah, well, I mean, we have 30-minute clocks on both sides. However, this matchup is a matchup that does take a while. This is not something we haven't seen already. It's the Esper Control versus Esper Hero matchup. We're going to probably see that more over the course of this weekend, and it is a bit of a grind fest as well because, you know, both decks play a ton of Planeswalkers and a lot of removal effects, and you're just going to see a bunch of Planeswalkers going back and forth, extracting value, and then ultimately probably decided by a Teferi emblem or something like a Commanded Dreadhorde. Yeah, it's interesting too, you know, welcome Brian Braun-Duin to the feature area here. This is his first time playing in this event so far because he was one of the 4 players from the MPL who won their division in that first Spark Split and earned day 2. And I'll tell you what, for all of you at home that were watching along and saw how difficult it was to get through that absurd field yesterday, now he puts a little more context around what he really got by doing that. Yeah, and absolutely, and Brian is no stranger to this deck. He basically submitted this Esper Hero list every single week in the MPL because he just kept winning with it. And so he is very, very experienced playing this deck. So, you know, we talk about how, you know, the Esper Control deck is slightly favored in the matchup, but, you know, Brian is so familiar with how his deck plays out and exactly how to sideboard. I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. Yeah, you know, I think that that's probably the first place you should always look if there's a standard tournament and Brad and or BBD, or especially both, are playing in it. Look at what they're playing. There are reasons behind the deck that they chose, the specific version of the deck, and literally every card, literally every one has a specific role that they chose
for this tournament. And I would put my faith in those two gentlemen over basically anybody in the field when it comes to deck selection.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to just talk about players who've kind of had the most success over the last 4 to 5 years, Marcio Carvalho has got to be in the top 5. I mean, it seems like every single year he top 8s a Mythic Championship, makes it to the finals. And yeah, so I mean, you know, whenever it comes to just moments in the clutch, a lot of the times, I mean, he's able to deliver. He has so many top 8s at this point, and you know, even yesterday, pulling out an incredible victory against Ashley Espinoza.
That's right. Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, Marcio is just one of the best players in the world, and he's proven that here on Arena, Magic Online, and in tabletop as well. He just crushes everything he plays. All right, looks like we are underway here. We are playing double elimination today. Of course, tomorrow will be your top 4. The players are playing for a chance for $100,000 up top. That's first place prize money, as well as a seat in the World Championship at the end of the season. Kicks things off though for Marcio. He's got Thought Erasure on the play.
Yeah, he's got 2 lands in play, so he really wants to find a blue source untapped on top because he has a Narset that he wants to run out on turn 3.
Also worth noting here with Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and well, now 1 Narset Parter of Veils in hand here for BBD. Double Elder Spell in hand for Marcio.
Yeah. You know, a lot of players play 1 to 2 copies of Elder Spell. Elder Spell is extremely powerful in this matchup. It's one of those cards, though, if you do play against kind of a white aggressive deck or any other aggressive deck in general, it's going to be kind of a dead card. But I think Marcio and the team of players that he's playing with kind of determined, hey, we expect lots of Esper, and we want to have that leg up. And you talk about every single card selection in your deck mattering. This is an example of that. It's like, look, everybody's playing 1. I'm going to play 2 to make sure I have a slight edge.
Well, in the meantime here, Paul, Marcio has missed multiple land drops and is almost out of this game already, though that Watery Grave off the top of the library may give him a reprieve, but he has fallen behind that, you know, we call it breaking serve, right? He had the play, and now all of a sudden he's the one behind on resources, as Brian Braun-Duin is the one who hits his 3rd land drop first and plays Narset Parter of Veils before Marcio does.
Yeah, and this is one thing that we've seen fairly often where you have these kind of quote-unquote control decks missing a bunch of land drops, and one big reason for that is, you know, historically control decks have ways to kind of cycle or kind of smooth out your draws, but you don't really have that as much anymore. Sure, Narset gets you spells, but it doesn't get you lands, and sometimes that's what you're looking for.
Here's an Oath of Kaya now from Brian Braun-Duin to take down Narset. A cast down off the top of the library here for Marcio, though no targets for it just yet. Teferi, Time Raveler hits the battlefield, pluses and passes the turn back. Brian Braun-Duin, well, he did get a Tyrant scoring off of the Narset. Doesn't look super great, but the rest of his hands looks nice.
Yeah, this is a nice little 1-2 here. He's going to go with Hero Precinct 1, followed by a Thought Erasure.
The classic.
The classic.
And it's really a great combo, and not only do you get the 1/1, but you can, you know, try to protect that hero.
Yeah. Marcio's hand is full of a lot of awesome cards here, so it's going to be interesting to see what he chooses. Does he want to take the cast down here and try to win with the Hero Precinct 1? Marcio doesn't have the white source to cast Kaya's Wrath just yet. Or does he want to take one of the Elder Spells because it is one of the more important cards in the matchup, kind of setting up for a long game?
Yeah, BBD does have 1 Planeswalker in his hand still, as well as 1 on the battlefield, so the Elder Spell can do work. Well, he's going to take away Kaya's Wrath.
Yeah, and this makes some sense, because if you look at Brian's hand, he does have a 2nd copy of Hero of Precinct 1. So if Marcio spends his turn to cast down on the Hero of Precinct 1, that's not so bad, because you still get that, you have that token in play, you get to still untap and then run out Hero of Precinct 1. And if you draw a land, you can run out Elite Guard Mage as well, and you don't have to worry about the threat of a potential Wrath to follow that up.
He was deciding on his Surveil there as well, and he decided, yeah, you know what, I'll take another copy of Oath of Kaya. He is staring down Teferi, Time Raveler, and if we take a look at the hand here of Marcio, there's a Teferi, Hero of Dominaria lurking there for, you know, potential land drops down the line.
It looks like Marcio's probably just going to fire off this cast down here on the Hero Precinct 1.
Gotta do it.
Does not want to give Brian more tokens, and will probably continue taking up this Time Raveler here. Could bounce the 1/1 token, but he won't be able to draw a card because of the Narset in play.
So he just says, nah.
Yeah.
little bit awkward here for BBD just having the one white mana source available, given that he does have Elite Guard Mage, Teferi, and Oath of Kaya, as well as that other Hero of Precinct 1 in hand.
Yeah, he's got that Teferi Hero of Dominaria in play, but he doesn't really want to run it out because he knows Marcio has 2 copies of Elder Spell in hand.
So he's going to be patient and play Elite Guard Mage, perhaps trying to hit another land there, but he did not. But he did find a nice one, Teferi, though, again, those Elder Spells are kind of looming large, as now BBD has 2 Planeswalkers in his hand, and he's reluctant to put those on the battlefield, knowing that they could just be killed.
Yeah, Marcio, I mean, it looks like he's probably just going to run at the Basilica Bellhunt. He doesn't have a lot of other great options. I mean, he can use Thought Erasure, but he doesn't really want to use Elder Spell just to get a singular Narset off the board.
Especially on 1.
So casting just a Thought Erasure this turn doesn't feel especially great.
No, I am not making this up as I go.
And Marcio going with the tempo play here of bouncing the Elite Guard Mage despite not being able to draw a card due to the presence of Narset Parter Veils.
Ugh, that is not where you want to be. Elite Guard Mage comes back down the next turn and draws BBD another card. I guess he just takes it? That's brutal.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's probably not going to be taking the Planeswalkers here because of the Elder Spells. So he can either take the Hero of Precinct 1 or Elite Guard Mage. Those are the cards that make the most sense here.
He's going to decide on the Hero of Precinct 1. That, of course, does leave Teferi Time Raveler on the battlefield. And just like we drew it up, Brian Braun-Duin draws another Hero of Precinct 1 off the top of the library.
And for all of those watching, yes, this also happens to the pro players.
That's right.
You take the best card out of their hand, but you can't stop what's on top of their deck.
That is how this game works. Now, let's see what BBD wants to do. Looks like he's going to fire off Elite Guard Mage. Maybe hit a white source? No, he found a D-Spark instead. Chip away at Teferi's loyalty here. But again, these sequences not favoring Marcio as, yeah, sure, it set back BBD a little bit on tempo, but he's getting a card every time that Guard Mage hits the battlefield.
Yeah, and the evasion on the Elite Guard Mage very key here, as Marcio can run out of Basilica Bellhunt, but it will not be able to block the Elite Guard Mage, so the Guard Mage will be able to finish off Teferi Time Raveler here. Still curious to see, you know, a lot of people have played, some versions play Elite Guard Mage, some versions play Basilica Bellhunt, like what ultimately ends up being the right thing to do, because, you know, on one end of the spectrum, Elite Guard Mage is nice because it has that evasion, so you can attack over ground creatures into Planeswalkers. At the same time, it gets Oath of Kaya, it gets Lightning Strike, it has that 3 toughness. Although, on the other side, it's also a lot easier to cast, so.
Also, I mean, generally you would value drawing a card more highly than you discard any card you want.
Yeah, I would say that the draw card effect is slightly stronger. However, just the +1/+1 stats on the card, I think, is just significantly stronger.
I'm trying to break it down.
Yeah, yeah, right.
You know how my brain works.
Yes.
Like you win that fight, but wouldn't you rather have a card than having your opponent discard a card that they choose?
Yeah, absolutely, of course, because you know the way these matchups play out, oftentimes you just have. You're kind of playing off the top of your deck. You're just killing each other's resources. So, you know, in the late game, Elite Guard Mage is significantly stronger than Basilica Bellhunt.
It's interesting. They're very close. You know, that evasion matters. It's super, super close. And you can see, now mana-wise as well, though, right? That's something we should mention, is that one of these is significantly easier to cast than the other.
But if you're already committing yourself to playing Kaya's Wrath in your deck, you're already configuring your mana base in such a way where you should be able to play black, white cards on turn 4.
Gotcha.
So at that point, you can also just fit in Basilica Bellhunt. So, for example, BBD, you see that basic island in play because he doesn't need 2 swamps and 2 plains on turn 4 because he doesn't play Kaya's Wrath. Whereas Marcio likely has a swamp and a plains in his deck instead.
Hero of Precinct 1 is going to hit the battlefield here. Now, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, is lurking on the other side of the battlefield. BBD decided to finish off the baby Teferi and then just send the token upstairs. So he's left the opposing Teferi on 5 loyalty right now. Leaning on Narset Parter Veils to stem the bleeding as far as that goes, though, you know, we have seen these sequences with the Elder Spell.
Oh, this is nice.
Ouch.
Yeah, and Marcio casting that Elder Spell at instant speed. Even though Teferi Time Raveler is in the graveyard, he did plus it on the previous turn, so he was able to play Elder Spell at instant speed.
BBD, that was nice.
Yeah.
He even got the extra chip damage in there just for Val. That was beautifully drawn up.
And Marcio needs a sweeper now. Brian has amassed a very nice board here. Basilica Bellhunt does do a pretty good job here of kind of stemming the bleeding here, at least on the ground. But Brian just has far more resources. Take a look at his hand. I mean, he's got 2 Teferis in play, along with that Oath of Kaya. He can even use the Oath of Kaya if he attacks with the 1/1 tokens and Marcio blocks. He can use the Oath of Kaya to finish off the Basilica Bellhunt.
Yeah, great point. Ooh,
wow.
Command the Dreadhorde off the top of the library now for Brian Braun-Duin. Maybe we'll get a little graveyard check from him. But either way, that is going to give him the hammer blow that he needs in the late game. Now, you were just noting, Paul, that he's already ahead on board and in a fine position. Is the general play to wait around for Command the Dreadhorde, or do you just run it out if there's a couple of good targets? I mean, we know there's at least one of each Teferi in graveyards right now,
right,
and a Narset.
It's very interesting here. It looks like Brian's going to go with the attack and just kind of see if he should be Oath of Kayaing this turn. But if you take a look at Marcio's hand, he does have Teferi plus Elder Spell. So, for example, if he draws land number 7, if Brian casts Command the Dreadhorde and gets a bunch of Planeswalkers onto the battlefield, Marcio can then respond by playing Teferi Elder Spell and then embleming Teferi.
Right, so that is just not an option for Brian Braun-Duin because he knows about both cards in hand, so he's just like, I'm never, you know, that is way too risky.
That is how he loses the game.
Right, that's one of the only ways that he can set up a loss is by giving Marcio, 4 juicy targets for that Elder Spell. So he's going to play correctly and just run out the Teferi Time Raveler and sort of take his time. Let's not forget, he is already ahead on board and applying significant pressure to Marcio's life total, and currently Marcio has no answer in hand to what's going on. He can run out Teferi and either try to find one or stem the bleeding, but given how far behind he is on board, things are looking very tough for Marcio, and that's if we don't even consider the Command the Dreadhorde in hand for Brian.
Right. Hero Precinct 1 winning the matchup this time around at least. Guess drawing that 3rd copy was pretty good.
Yeah, and it really does show off the reason that people play a card like this. In a deck like this, it is a 2-mana card that really demands an answer at some point. And if you can answer it really early, then fine. You traded probably a 2-mana card for likely another 2-mana card and you can move on with your life. If it takes a little while, then 2 mana is actually too late, right? They can't cast it down and leave 5 tokens. It now demands a Wrath. That's for 2 mana. Right. That's your 2-drop. Like,
especially in this matchup of attrition, where even if you get a single token, it feels like kind of a big deal.
Yeah, you've pointed that out a couple of times yesterday, and boy, did it show up on camera multiple times where just having 1 token to finish off the Planeswalkers that end up at 1 loyalty frequently.
Double burn spell finish here.
Look at this play here from Brian Braun-Duin. He knocks Marcio down to 6, and 3+3 from 2 Oath of Kayas is enough to seal the deal. We call it Esper Hero, but Esper Burn, anybody?
Esper Burn.
That is game number 1 going to Brian Braun-Duin.
And that was a crucial victory here for Brian because I think the Esper Control deck, it's got the huge edge game 1. The main reason being it has no real good targets for removal, so you get to basically blank all the removal effects of the Esper Hero deck. They're playing cards like Tyrant Scorn and Hostage Taker that don't do anything in the matchup. I mean, Brian had a couple of stranded Tyrant Scorns in his hand there. It's just Brian just got too far ahead with the other Planeswalkers that he had. So Marcio, I think game 1 has something like a 60+% edge, but after sideboard, I think it just gets even again. If anything, it goes back into the favor of the Esper Hero deck because now they have a proactive threat that kind of forces the opponent to kind of figure out exactly what mix of removal they need. And Kai even alluded to it yesterday where he was like, yeah, now we're in a situation where if I draw Hero and he doesn't draw removal, he loses. If he draws removal and I don't draw Hero, I'm ahead because I have other cards I can play while he has removal stuck in his hand.
You see those Tyrant Scorns just fleeing the main deck here for Brian Braun-Duin as he finishes his sideboard plan and hits submit. It looks like Marcio's still making any last-minute tweaks that he wants to see, but now we're underway here in game number 2. I'll remind you, these players are playing double elimination. There's 16 players left in the field after yesterday, so you can lose once, can't lose twice.
One card that I'm really excited to see play is Nightveil Predator. That's a 2 of in Marcio Carvalho's sideboard.
This has been a fascination of ours, Paul.
Well, I mean, you know, limited powerhouse.
Yep.
Night Veil, a Predator. It's a 4-mana 3/3 flying hexproof creature, and you would never consider this to be a card that you would play really in Constructed. However, because of the nature of the format, you see it in his hand right now, because of the nature of the format and just how this matchup plays out, just a random evasive hexproof creature is really, really powerful against all these 3-mana planeswalkers that this deck plays.
Clunky start here for Brian Braun-Duin. He got duressed and Thought Erasure was taken away, but he wouldn't have been able to cast it yet anyway with double Drowned Catacomb for 2 tap lands, and he's already facing down Search for Azcanta and Narset Parter of Veils. And if BBD doesn't draw a land here, his only play is going to be Argywell's Bloodfast.
Ooh,
and
this is rough.
just bad. This is one of those games where, like, it's kind of over, right? Like, it's not literally, but it's kind of
It's close.
over.
If Marcio can find a land here to slam the Night Veil Predator,
yeah,
it's going to be huge.
There it is. Land off the top of the library, plus the Narset activation here as well. Oh, we found Cry of the Carnarium, so even a white source for BBD. And a Hero of Precinct 1 will not be enough, but there it is. And it is not a white source, it is a blue source. So once again, no plays here for BBD. All he can do is activate that Argywell's Bloodfast at some point here and try to find more lands.
Yeah, I wonder if Brian should have just activated the Bloodfast right away. If he found a shock land, he can play it tapped on his turn.
Agree. In the meantime, the Mythic Uncommon.
3 at a time.
Jamming in, yeah. Hey, you know what? It does add up when your opponent is trying to get going with Argywell's Bloodfast, does it not?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And now Marcio has to figure out what to take with the Thought Erasure. He has 2 copies in hand, so he can kind of plan his next few turns well. He's got a copy of the Elder Spell, so maybe he's not as concerned about Teferi. Brian is
also
2 turns away.
2. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Elite Guard Mage would be one of the types of cards that BBD would like to see, but again, you see the power of Night Veil Predator just cleanly able to attack through it.
Yeah, I could potentially see Marcio just taking both of the Elite Guard Mages here because he does have the Cry of the Carnarium for Hero of Precinct 1. And that does buffer Brian's life total. It looks like he's going to go for Teferi here.
Okay, so he's thinking long term. He knows that he can lock this thing up quite nicely. Even though the Elder Spell does make you think, well, play a Teferi, I get to just kill it.
Right. It'll be interesting. Is he going to fire off this Thought Erasure and go, you know what, I'll take 1 Guard Mage and 1 Teferi?
That would be weird.
Yeah, but Brian does kind of have a hand that's pretty good against hand disruption in a sense because it's just 2 of each. Yeah.
Yeah, he did have double Hero, double Guard Mage, double Teferi.
And I don't think Marcio wants... it feels like Marcio wants to just use his mana here, but...
All right, there is a land off the top of the library,
no
and
white source.
Another one, but no white mana means that he can't cast a single spell here, so tap land, go. Now, again, he could have activated the Bloodfast, tried to find a white source, and then slammed Hero.
Yeah.
But he chose against it.
He could have even found a Duress to play.
That's right. Well, Night Veil Predator is going to do Night Veil Predator things and jam in there for another 3. Down to 12, and there's Teferi, Hero of Dominaria on the battlefield, and this one has been a bloodbath in Marcio's favor. Nothing has gone right for BBD, and Marcio had a nice draw here. Search for Azcanta into Narset, into double Thought Erasure with Night Veil Predator before that, and now Teferi.
Also Duress, right?
Yes, you're right. You're right. How could I forget the Duress?
Yeah. He just curved perfectly, and BBD just had a really awkward, clunky start, and there's just no coming back from this.
That's right. Here's Teferi, Hero of Dominaria for Brian Braun-Duin. It's got to be too little too late here, though. Especially given that it will depart the battlefield immediately here, thanks to the Night Veil Predator.
I just want to give all the credit to Night Veil Predator for this win.
Agreed.
I know Marcio has played 6 other highly impactful spells, but I mean...
It has done a lot of damage.
Yeah. Look, BBD's at 8.
Esper beatdown. So Predator's going to kill Teferi as predicted. And there's a lot more in the tank here for Marcio Carvalho. He still has a lot of action in his hand even after having curved out beautifully. Looks like he's going to go for Time Raveler. and perhaps a thought erasure.
It looks like it's just going to be big Teferi
Oh,
here.
never mind. Yeah, he went for the big boy. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, back on the battlefield. He's got one now on top of his library after having his draw step plus the card drawn from Teferi.
And, you know, honestly, I don't even see how Brian is going to beat this Nightveil Predator. He's at 8, and I don't think he has a really strong answer to that creature. If he just attacks 3 times, it's just over.
It looks good.
Yeah.
Like, we've been kind of like, oh, Nightveil Predator, I drafted that, but it's
Right.
like kind of looking good.
Yeah, I mean, there is a reason that the top players in the world are playing the card.
That's true, that's true. All right, well, we're going to see this little song and dance once again, but, you know, you played Teferi, I played Teferi. In the meantime, the tiebreaker here is Nightveil Predator slamming in and either killing your Teferi, you know, in the case of Brian Braun-Duin, or just hitting you.
Right.
So this is a cycle that Marcio is only too happy to continue. Draws a card, it's Oath of Kaya. Gets a couple of lands here. And another land, and somehow BBD is now flooding. We have hit that point where he's got still just the 1 white mana source. With 4 white cards in his hand, he has been limited to 1 spell per turn. For the last 3 turns, 4 turns, something like that. And well, that's not helping his cause either.
Yeah, I don't think he has any other option here other than just playing out Elite Guard Mage, but it doesn't even draw him a card.
No. Does gain him 3 life, can't take that away from him.
This is where the Bell Hunt's nice. You get some extra value.
There you go. Oh, there you go. Another little corner case for the Bell Hunt. I like it.
And Marcio is... Actually, Marcio can just use Elder Spell here now to emblem Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and just kind of seal the deal here. He can go Elder Spell, put 4 counters on Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and then minus, and then that should just be the game.
We've seen this line of play multiple times now over the course of the
Oh, he doesn't... What am I saying?
What?
I thought he had Elder Spell. That was...
He does.
Oh, he does. Okay, okay.
Yeah, you're
okay.
right. You're
it was
right.
on the stack. I was just looking at his hand. I just didn't
Here,
see
have
it.
a sip of coffee. You're good, buddy.
All right, all
You
right.
saw it all. Look at that. 9 down to 1, just like you said. Now, the game hasn't ended yet, as you predicted, but really, it's over. Wow, another Hero of Precinct 1. But that emblem on the battlefield, well, I shouldn't say on the battlefield, wherever emblems exist.
That I was just seeing things.
The command zone. No, I did that yesterday once. It's when the player pulls it out of their hand and hovers, but it's the top player.
Right,
It's like, oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's really just sort of on its way to the stack, right? It's on that in between. But yeah, the emblem, every single time Marcio draws a card, he gets to exile a permanent of his choice. And, well, that's just going to mean that things are going to get very, very difficult here for Brian Braun-Duin to keep anything on the battlefield. Also, the customary play, it's just uncanny how often it happens. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, following up an emblem Teferi.
Right.
In this case, he got to keep the one that he had because he actually was 1 loyalty extra. He was up to 9, as you mentioned, Paul. So, plus Teferi and start to go to work on this board.
Yeah,
and
so
that's a matter of time.
Right, it's only a matter of time. And the only thing Marcio is now considering here is whether or not he should be going after the creatures that are on the board, or maybe just attacking Brian's mana. Brian's been kind of stuck on white mana for a while, so if he just tries to remove all the Hallowed Fountains, Brian can't find cards like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria himself.
Yep. And now the Nightveil Predator, by the way, doing a very good job on defense, just making sure that that Brian doesn't come up with some absurd board state on that Hero of Precinct 1. I wouldn't be shocked to see Cry the Carnarium either.
Yeah, definitely.
There it is. And that's got to be the nails in the coffin here for Brian Braun-Duin, as Marcio Carvalho has really never been behind at any point during the course of this game. From turn 1 onward, he had a significant lead, and he has yet to relinquish it in any meaningful way.
Now he's going to bounce Elite Guard Mage, draw a card. Teferi Emblem triggers. He'll be able to exile another card here.
Yeah, he's already got both of the white mana sources, so it's fairly likely that Elite Guard Mage, Hero of Precinct 1, and other Hero of Precinct 1 are going to be uncastable next turn. This is kind of the fun part if you're Marcio, right? Like for us, you know, we're kind of going through the motions because this one's basically in the books, but Marcio's like, this is sweet.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get to just go off with Teferi Emblem and your opponent hasn't conceded, you're just like, all right, let's keep playing. I'm happy to keep playing if you want.
It's like a gift.
And look at this, the mana denial strategy actually working out here.
Beautifully.
Brian drawing Command the Dreadhorde, but only on 5 lands. Of course, he's only at 8, but...
All right, and he is going to pack it in, so that's game number 2, going to Marcio Carvalho. Trying to get revenge for 2016. BBD was the eventual winner of that ultra intense and ultra drawn out 5-match finals of the World Championship.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that one, Paul.
You,
part of my soul left with
it
that.
sounds, yeah. You lost a little bit of yourself there.
Yeah, I was casting that one with Luis Scott Vargas, and I'm just like, carry me. Carry me out of this building.
So, I mean, take a look at Brian's entire deck here. We kind of were talking about the effectiveness of Nightfell Predator. Brian just doesn't have a single way to deal with it outside of getting it with a Thought Erasure. I mean, it's not like it's an incredible clock, but it is one of those things that, you know, if you want to protect your Planeswalkers, your opponent simply can't attack into them.
Yep.
And then at some point in the game, you can also use it to finish off your opposing Planeswalkers, or just end the game by itself. I mean, Marcio did like 9 or 12 points of damage with that Predator before BBD conceded.
Yeah,
I wonder if
it
BBD
killed 2 Teferis.
I mean, there's probably just way too many ways to answer it, but one thing that Brian could consider is boarding in Lyra Dawnbringer as a way to kind of go over the top of a card like Nightfell Predator. The only problem is it's just so susceptible to Teferi Time Raveler. Tapping out and playing a 5-mana creature and having your opponent play a 3-mana Planeswalker, bouncing and drawing a card, it just feels way too bad.
Makes me vaguely sick to my stomach to even consider it, Paul. I don't think I would expose myself to such things. This looks like a mulligan to 6 here for Marcio. Of course, BBD is going to be on the play and has his mana this time.
Yeah, and this is going to be huge. Being on the play is crucial here for BBD as he gets turn 2 Hero Precinct 1, and Marcio doesn't have the answer. He had a turn 2 Thought Erasure, which he would have been able to nab if he was on the play.
This is also funny. Hero of Precinct 1, no gold cards in hand. I don't think I've ever seen that out of this deck. It has an incredible high number of percentage of gold cards in its Elder Spell and a pair of Command the Dreadhorde in hand for BBD. Now, this is still a great play, though, because he's very likely to find basically any spell he
But
wants.
the thing is, actually, after sideboard, many of the good cards that you board in are not gold, right? You bring in Duress, you bring in Elder Spell, you board out Tyrant Scorn. You know, you're just boarding out a bunch of the gold cards and boarding in a bunch of mono-colored cards.
2-2 for 2, your move.
Yeah.
One of the Command the Dreadhorde.
That's not going to get it done, and Marcio did find land number 3 here for Teferi to get that Hero Precinct 1 off the battlefield.
That's right, so he's going to send it packing back to hand, and BBD's like, give me a Thought Erasure just the once. Nope, it's another land off the top of the library here. So his play is going to once again just be Hero of Precinct 1. He's going to leave Teferi on the battlefield for now. Elder Spell can do more work down the line.
Yeah, Marcio is aware of that, and he does have a Thought Erasure in hand, so he can look to nab the Elder Spell or Commander Dreadhorde, or just continue to put pressure on the battlefield.
Marcio's got a stacked hand, but he is down to just the last land in hand.
He could just choose to play a land here and go draw step Thought Erasure with the Teferi Time Raveler. If BBD draws a gold card, Marcio can just take it with a Thought Erasure.
It's tempting.
Alternatively, he could just run out the second copy of Teferi Time Raveler, just bouncing the Hero of Precinct 1, continue to smooth out his draws and find more land drops. He doesn't really want to play Narset because Brian has Elder Spell in hand.
Wow, another land off the top of the library here for Brian Braun-Duin. And there is that draw step Thought Erasure. And that is going to reveal, well, some happiness here for Marcio, because he sees much the same that he did before with just a few lands added. The good news is Hero of Precinct 1 is able to take care of the Time Raveler. Now, the value was already gotten, but still, getting that thing off the battlefield is a win for the hero.
Yeah, and this is huge. Marcio now finding land number 5. He's going to slam Teferi Hero of Dominaria. He's probably drawing a card. Actually, he might just minus on the hero here. Yeah, because he knows Brian's hand. So now Brian has to decide whether or not he wants to use the Elder Spell on Teferi, because Marcio's going to be drawing additional cards every single turn. But we know Marcio has that backup copy of Teferi Hero of Dominaria in hand. So
it feels like it's forced, right? Like BBD would be in a very tough position if he's just like, yeah, go ahead, just start grinding.
Yeah, I think BBD just kind of has to do this.
Yeah.
Marcio knows he has to do this, and he's just setting this up beautifully.
Yeah, this is really good play here. Taking advantage of this land-heavy draw from Brian Braun-Duin is Marcio Carvalho as he maneuvers nicely here.
Marcio drew kind of the perfect card to make him think whether or not he wants to run out Teferi Hero of Dominaria or both of his other Planeswalkers.
That's right. One unknown card in hand.
I think he's thinking, well, what if Brian has something like Dovin's Veto? If he has Dovin's Veto, I want to safely play Time Raveler first, then Narset, get a card, then next turn the coast will be clear for me to play Teferi Hero of Dominaria.
But it's like one card off the top of the library.
Right.
It would be an act of cowardice to... And by the way, BBD, my goodness, my friend, you have drawn a lot of lands this game. His next draw step is going to be that Hero of Precinct 1. And we have yet to see a gold card on the stack from BBD, let alone any other spells. The cards in between the hero and the top of the library were also both lands.
Right.
Yeah, this draw has really not come together here for Brian. I mean, yeah, Marcio's been playing well, sequencing things and kind of setting up everything, but as it stands, he is in an absolutely dominating position because both players know that BBD's draw step is a 2/2 for 2.
Yeah, I'm actually curious why he ran out that Duress. With Teferi Time Raveler, he could have Duress draw step, and Brian can't actually do anything with Teferi Time Raveler in play.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Not that it really matters at this
but
point because he's so far ahead.
So far ahead, but still, yeah, you want to maximize. In the meantime, Brian Braun-Duin would love to switch hands here with Marcio as he's now facing down a trio of Planeswalkers, double Teferi and Narset. The only good news here is that Marcio doesn't have a ton going on. Sure, he can Cry of the Carnarium away, Hero of Precinct 1, but I think we all know that it's going to take a much bigger draw step for BBD to get out of it than a Hero.
I wonder if Marcio's considering going for the Teferi Emblem here again. He can go for Teferi Emblem here, use the Elder Spell, sacrifice Narset and Time Raveler, get the additional counters onto Teferi, and play the Emblem. And you know,
do you not?
We've seen how this
so powerful.
This is kind of the way to just win the game. This is the win condition.
We've seen it like consistently enough now that I agree. This
Right.
is just how you win so often.
And a card that BBD might need to get back from this is a card like Commander Dreadhorde, but we've seen 2 copies of it go into the graveyard.
Yeah, that's both of them too.
Right.
He's one board, one main.
So none left. So he needs a card that puts multiple threats onto the battlefield, and I don't think, given that both of the Commander Dreadhordes are in the on the graveyard, he just doesn't have anything else.
And in the meantime, this Teferi Emblem is doing work, and Marcio Carvalho is going to win this first match of the day. Brian Braun-Duin didn't have to play yesterday. He earned his way here, I got to say the hard way, you know, over weeks in the MPL weekly events. But boy, welcome to the deep end of the pool here, Brian Braun-Duin, because this is going to be a tough day if it keeps going like this. He is flooding out super hard here in game number 3. Finds a Narset that does allow him to dig a bit, but what are we trying to find?
Okay,
Elder Spell?
Okay, Elder Spell is very, very good here. I mean, now Marcio has it. I mean, Marcio still has the emblem of every turn I get to just kill something.
I think if I were BBD, I would try to target the emblem just to...
Yeah, can I Elder Spell the emblem, please?
No, didn't happen? All right, well, I guess I lose then.
And I mean...
Narset's on 7. She can, air quote, ultimate.
I'm not sure what... I think BBD just probably has to run out Hero Precinct 1. I don't know. Maybe he's going to try to sandbag a bunch of cards and...
Oh, there's Commander Dreadhorde now for
Marcio.
Oh,
my goodness. Okay, well, that should probably do it.
Right.
One important thing for Marcio is just to make sure he doesn't go to 3 or lower life, because then that gives Brian the chance of drawing Oath of Kaya off the top for the win.
You know, I'll be honest. If I was Marcio, I wouldn't even want to go to 6. Even with one unknown card in hand for BBD, I would just be a full coward and be like, I'm not going below.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be looking to get, you know, Teferi Hero of Dominaria, anything that draws me cards just so I can continue attacking Brian's lands. So it's just a Teferi.
Solid.
Yeah.
Again, if you wanted to go to, if you were to go to 6 to get one of these 3s, it's like, man, if my opponent just snapped off Double Oath of Kaya somehow. I think I would storm out of the building.
Oh, there's one. Look at that.
Yeah. But he can also start just attacking the white mana sources here. It's just it would have taken a turn.
Oh,
That's
Brian
right.
has
Send
a game
message,
plan.
BBD. I love it. He's got 3 power on the battlefield.
He's got a game plan.
There are some major issues that he's facing, though. Crying of the Carnarium will clear out the board.
We need to move quickly.
And if you're wondering why Marcio chose to get the Oath of Kaya that was on the battlefield, it's to limit further what Brian could draw. If Brian drew Teferi Time Raveler, he could cast it to bounce Oath of Kaya and then replay Oath of Kaya to try to, I mean, those are the corner cases now. The only thing Brian's trying to do is find Oath of Kayas in succession to be able to get Marcio dead here, because Marcio is ultimately going to win the game in the next 2 or 3 turns.
You can see the permanent count for Brian Braun-Duin has dwindled. He has no non-land permanents on the battlefield at this point, and he's down to 6 lands.
Yeah, and Marcio's going to continue attacking the white mana that Brian has in play to try to prevent him from casting Oath of Kaya.
That's right. He's got him down to just 2 white mana sources left at this point, and a Drowned Catacomb off the top of the library is certainly not going to get the job done here for BBD, even with Teferi. Still playing it out, though. Search for Azcanta is going to transform now for Marcio Carvalho, but again, we're just going through the motions at this point. The game was more or less locked up with that Teferi emblem and has been on a steep downward trajectory here for BBD ever since. Real tough. He just hit a patch of lands there in the middle part of that game when Marcio was really kind of doing a lot to affect the board.
Yeah, I think just all the Thought Erasures, Marcio just took all the relevant spells out of Brian's hand, and Brian was in a position where if he drew something relevant to put onto the battlefield, he could have had a chance. But, you know, this was just one of those games where Marcio just drew more of the Planeswalkers and just got too far ahead on cards.
Yeah, then went for that combo finish that we've seen multiple times. Elder Spell, a couple of my own Planeswalkers, but leave Teferi, Hero of Dominaria there. Put all the extra loyalty onto him, and then ultimate right now this turn. And it's GG.
And we see that, you know, in any matchup, the Elder Spell is actually just not even a dead card, right? It just kind of ramps you up to make sure that you can get that emblem on Teferi, Hero of Dominaria as quickly as possible. So it's kind of like a pump spell for your Planeswalkers, right?
It kind of is, yeah. Here's Argywell's Bloodfast, but that's going to get Thought Erasured, and that's going to do it. Brian Braun-Duin says, I've had enough, and Marcio Carvalho picks up round number 1 here in day 2.
Gets a little revenge.
That's right, early in the morning, and says, you may have got me before, but I'll take this one. Thank you very much. Of course, there's a long road ahead for both of these players. Brian Braun-Duin picks up a loss here. This is actually the first match that he's played in the tournament, but he's not out. It is double elimination. So what that means is that you're not out of this tournament until you pick up your second loss. Now, once you do, you're done. There's no tiebreakers. There's no, maybe I'll get in if I get lucky. Instead, it's, you know, here's the door. We hope you had a good time.
And of course, Marcio still needs to rack up a few more wins, but being in the winner's bracket is a huge advantage because, you know, you can actually make it into the top 4 with less wins than you would have to win if you lose your first round.
Okay, well, guess what? We've got a few words with Marcio Carvalho. Let's throw it to Becca.
Thanks, Marshall. That's right, I'm here with Marcio Carvalho. How does it feel to have won against the person that you played against in the World Championships and won?
Yeah, I get a little revenge now. The games were good. Game 1 I was a little screwed, but the other 2 games I think was good. He flooded a lot on the last one, so it was tough for him. I mean, the mirror match is like this. I got the better one. I got the better draws, so.
Yeah, well, you know, the Esper Control slightly favored in that mirror match, or semi-mirror match, so well chosen by you. Now, tell me the name of that hex-proof 3/3 flying creature that you brought in that seems to be, I think you're the only one that has that here today in their sideboard.
Me and John Rolfe that we test together, and it's Nightveil Predator. It's very good in the mirror because nothing kills it. It doesn't play Kaya's Red, so it's like unkillable threat to kill all the Planeswalkers, to block all the creatures, so it's awesome.
Yeah, what a great choice with that, and that seemed to really be super clutch in Game 2. Is there anything that you're worried about going forward for future matchups?
Not really. I hope I draw as well as I've been drawing, and may the cards be on my side.
Is there another player, probably an Esper Mirror, that you're a little more intimidated by their deck?
Maybe Shota. Yeah, Shota Yasuoka, he has Bola Citadel. He's just a master in the mirror, so I'm probably gonna lose to him.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. Marcio Carvalho won the first match of the day in day 2 of our Mythic Championship 3. Stay tuned, and more magic after a short break.
But down to 2 life. That will do it.
I am Andrea Mengucci, I'm from Italy. I am 25 and I'm a professional Magic player. Since I was a kid, I started playing Magic at the beach. It's basically been the only game that I've been playing. I was really good at sports, so I was just more like playing on the computer, but always Magic.
You just became the first champion of the Mythic Invitational!
So I finished my study last year and I was like, okay, great. 2010 will be my professional year. I'll be playing professionally Magic.
Hi, I'm Martin Yuzo. I'm from the Czech Republic, and I play a lot of Magic. In high school, my friends were playing this interesting game, and I just, I was interested, so I asked them what it is, and it's this, cool strategy game, and before I knew it, I was buying packs and just had a huge collection and everything, and as the time went by, I started playing tournaments and went to PTQs and whatever, and now we're here. When I got the phone call, it was an exciting moment. It was just there's a lot of things running through your head, and you're like, oh, we finally made it. This is great. This is all we ever wanted.
My name is Luis Salvato. I'm from Argentina. The first time my brother bought some Portal decks. We learned how to play, and then 10 years ago, I'm playing professional level.
Faxon says that's enough to kill me. Luis Salvato is your...
My family and my friends support me a lot. When I found out that I was in the MPL, that I was selected for that, everyone, mostly me, was super excited about this.
My name is William Jensen, nicknamed Huey, and I'm here today because I'm a member of the Magic Pro League. I first started playing Magic in 1997. Didn't take me very long to become competitive and start going to tournaments. I was going to weekly tournaments on a couple weeknights a week and even Saturdays, and I really liked the atmosphere, and I definitely found somewhere where I felt like I belonged.
And welcome back to coverage here of Mythic Championship 3 from Las Vegas. Marcio Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. Thanks so much for coming along. So we've got a nice one lined up for you. Still in the first round of the day, we've got Ken Yukihiro versus Simon Gerson, a much different take than we've seen with these Esper decks. These two gentlemen like to ramp, and we had a chance to hear from them. Let's hear from them right now.
I'm Simon Gerson, or Simon Gerson from Germany.
はい、僕の名前はYukihiro Kenです。日本の東京から来ました。そうですね。楽しむっていうのはもう別にいつもそのマジックの大会で参加する上でも楽しむってもう前提なんで、楽しむはもう当たり前の話で。
I have proven myself in the past years. I think I have a proto trophy at home. I have my coverage career, but still. The fire is there. I want to win.
今回に限って言えば、競技シーン、そのトーナメント、そのプロとしての自分の実力をみんなに見せる場だと思ってるんで、勝ちに来ましたね。
All right, well, you heard it from them. Now, Paul, we've been seeing a lot of Esper, and it's like, do you play, Esper Hero or Esper Control? Well, this is a much different look here. Taking a look at the deck list here, we've got Ken Yukihiro playing Bant Ramp. Go big or go home style, and on the other side of the battlefield, it'll be Simon Gerson, and he is playing what do I call it? I don't know.
Simic Ramp.
Nexus.
I mean, Simic Nexus, it's a different take on Simic Nexus because, of course, it doesn't play Wilderness Reclamation. But at the end of the day, you're still trying to lock up the game with Nexus. But, of course, you can also just win by playing a bunch of giant Hydroid Crazies or Nissa Who Shakes the World. But, I mean, the idea for both decks is just to get as many of the mana creatures in play as quickly as possible, and just the first person to get to their heavy hitters will usually be the one who comes out on top.
All right, well, the one that came out on top in game 1 here, Paul, was Simon. As he's up a game, we're joining in game number 2. And a little bit of an awkward draw, but a Hinterland Harbor off the top of the library there for Gerson is going to be a sigh of relief as he's got Llanowar Elves plus that Hinterland Harbor. He kept a 1-lander here.
Ooh, look at this attack.
And look at this snap block by Simon.
But
he
I
says,
like both
no problem.
because Ken will actually have access to 6 mana next turn, so he doesn't need that mana source. And now he still has the ability next turn to play either Nissa Who Shakes the World or Tolsimir. And Tolsimir is going to be huge here because it's going to eat Simon's mana creature.
Wow. So now you can see why Ken did that.
Oh, this is brutal. I mean, 5 mana, 2 3/3s on the battlefield, and I think this might be our first Tolsimir sighting.
It is, yeah. This is at least for you and I in the booth. This is the first time we've seen Tolsimir Friend to Wolves, 3/3 that brings a 3/3, and whenever a wolf enters a battlefield under your control, you gain 3 life, and that creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So that's why Ken's at 23, and why that Druid is in the graveyard. Boy.
This is going to get out of hand quick. Now Ken's going to be able to play Nissa Who Shakes the World, make a 3/3, attack with the team, and follow that up with a Llanowar Elf.
Simon's like, I thought I was the ramp deck here?
Yeah, well.
What happened? This is very bad news for Simon Gerson as Nissa Who Shakes the World hits the battlefield. And like, just to take a snapshot here, if you just popped in on this match, it's like 3/3, 3/3, 1/1, 3/3, and a Planeswalker versus, boom, Llanowar Elves.
Yeah, I mean, look at just the amount of pressure that Tolsimir puts here, right?
Oh, I wasn't done. Another Llanowar Elves.
Yeah, he's just got all the mana, and Simon is just way too far behind here. He needed a land to maybe be able to play Nissa, but this is just way too much on the board. Wow.
That was an absurd game in favor of Ken Yukihiro. Ken, why don't you smile, man? That was the best.
Well, he was down a game, all right?
Oh, yeah,
you know,
you're
so
right.
he's,
okay. So that was a survival game.
That was just breaking server or whatever, and just now making sure he can win game number 3 because, of course, being on the play in this matchup is huge because he was able to kind of ramp into his big threat first. But having access to the white mana and having access to cards like Tolsimir does give you somewhat of an edge here, right? Because you don't really care so much about the damage that you take from all the additional shock lands by being 3 colors, but you can really just kind of go over the top. You have access to a little more interaction because you can play Tolsimir. And a card that Ken Yukihiro plays is Finale of Glory, which allows Ken to, you know, put 60 power on the battlefield if you can get that off for 10.
You can do it, and this deck can absolutely do that. He plays one of those in the main deck. He also has Shalai, Voice of Plenty, if the game stalls out a little bit, where he can dump mana into that and win the game. Rut-row.
Yeah, and we're going to see here a mulligan to 5 here for Simon. And
yeah, that hand is just no bueno.
And this is something that you will often see, of course, if just for the ramp deck. Oftentimes you have to have a mix of ramp creatures, lands, and big things. And you just mulligan a little more often, I feel, just because you can just have hands where you have lands and just a bunch of big spells in your hand.
Yep, here's a keep now for Gerson. Curious to see if he keeps this forest. He really does actually need a blue source, but of course mana just as a quantity is something he's interested in as well, so he's going to keep it on top of the library.
Yeah, fortunately for Simon, it looks like Ken also took a mulligan here.
He did indeed.
But Ken's hand is much stronger here. I mean, he's got effectively 5 lands here.
And there's a nice top end, a mass manipulation off the top of the library there for Ken. So land drawn and a gutsy attack here for Simon sends his Llanowar Elves in.
I don't know. Maybe it's correct to block there. He did mulligan to 5.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes just the attrition can get you. But Ken has big plans here. And so he says, you know, I'm going to take it. And there we go. An island off the top of the library now will enable Growth Spiral. Or if he really wants, he could Hydroid Crasis to just get a card.
Yeah, Ken now has the ability to adapt Incubation Druid, but he doesn't have the ability to cast the Fairy Time Raveler because he doesn't have any white mana sources currently.
Yeah, so it'd be a 2-turn process with Incubation Druid and then.
Right. Now, if he draws a blue source, he will be able to cast Mass Manipulation, which is extremely powerful in this matchup. Oh, and a white source right off the top.
All right, well, easy mode.
So I wonder if Ken is just going to run out Teferi Time Raveler here, or if he's just going to go with the Adapt. But being very careful here to adapt, because sometimes with the auto tapper, the incubation druid will tap itself when you try to adapt, and of course you don't want that to happen.
Oh, I've been there before, buddy. I almost wrote you a strongly worded email. I decided that our friendship was more important.
Yeah, my inbox is pretty loaded. So
I blame Paul for basically every issue I have. So
yeah, that's fair.
Somebody cuts me off on the freeway. It's like, Paul, why did you let that happen?
Whoops.
Tamiyo, Collector of Tales, looks like desirable enough here, even with no graveyard for Simon. I wonder what a win looks like here for Simon. Right, he's behind, and looks to be falling a bit further behind thanks to the big hitter there, Mass Manipulation.
Oh man, it just gets worse and worse here. Ken has all the mana in the world. He can even cast a Mass Manipulation for 2 if he wants, but there's nothing really great to steal yet. So he's probably just going to run out this Nissa, and he has a negate backup here for anything that Simon is going to be looking to do next turn.
Beautiful draw steps here for Yukihiro. Also, I noted it about Brian Braun-Duin in our last match, but I want to highlight it again here. Ken earned his way to day 2 from MPL weekly play. There were only 4 of the 32 MPL players that got that day 2 position thanks to their play in their divisions. They had to win their division outright. And
yeah,
Ken was one of them.
And I will say I was a huge fan of just kind of his deck selection in the event. You know, on one end of the spectrum, we had BBD, who played basically the same deck and played it masterfully and kind of won a bunch of matches and got there. Ken just mixed it up almost every single week. He had a Bant Counters deck with Huatley's Raptor. He had a Bant Flash deck. He had Mono Red. He had the Golgari Land Destruction deck. He played so many different decks on the way to kind of locking up this slot. Very impressive.
He's extremely impressive with his selection for sure. Deputy of Detention is the draw step now. A little awkward. Share a lot of cards here. But.
Yeah, I mean, it's still weird. Ken can Mass Manipulation for a lot.
Yeah, it might be better to just steal your stuff rather than get rid of it with Deputy.
But at the same time, what do you even want to take with Mass Manipulation? There's just there's no Planeswalkers on the battlefield here, so it looks like Ken's going to just kind of slow roll that Mass Manipulation, wait till he finds a better spot to kind of just completely take over Simon's board.
Growth spiral now for Gerson.
Ooh, and hitting a land wasn't bad here because now Simon can actually adapt the Incubation Druid end of turn.
Yeah, he's got to take a few risks here as he is falling further and further behind. So that one works out pretty well for him.
Oh, and with Teferi Time Raveler, you can actually cast Mass Manipulation at instant speed.
Yeah, that feels
wow.
Fair. You ever been on the bad side of that? Because I have.
I have not had that happen to me yet. Fortunately.
Yeah, that's good, clean fun.
Yeah. I could also see Ken choosing to bounce Incubation Druid here because Simon will have access to a lot of mana next turn because he will be able to adapt.
Yeah, the best part about that is when you're like tapped out on Arena. So the Mass Manipulation just happens, right? Like if you have no responses and all your stuff just goes, and it's like, wait, come back. Stop.
Yeah, I've seen some other ramp decks kind of try fighting that by, instead of playing Mass Manipulation, playing Tristani Discordant, which means that even if they steal all your creatures, you'll just get them all back.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Here's Deputy of Detention to take down the opposing Incubation Druid. Simon's going to play tight here, tap it for a blue mana before it goes bye-bye.
Bluffing a negate, potentially.
Indeed. Another force off the top of the library, but what does a win look like for Simon from this juncture?
Well, at this point, he can't really play around anything, so he's just going to have to run out Tamiyo and try to string together some powerful effects. Ken now has the option of either negating this Tamiyo or just stealing it with Mass Manipulation.
I'd like that, thank you very much. Not a whole lot going on, though. Tamiyo could get back a Growth Spiral, which Simon cannot currently cast.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, like I'm trying to piece together a line.
He's just so far behind here.
I mean, look at this board state.
I mean, is Simon's win condition to string together a bunch of Nexus of Fate somehow with Tamiyo, or?
He'd have to have an attack that was viable. I guess, is this Krasis the only attacker? It's just tough to even imagine a victory from this point. And this is funny. So he pluses Tamiyo, and you see him now reading every option and going, is there any possible?
So these are all the cards that he's named in the past when he's playing this deck, right? Or is that just the entire deck list? I don't actually know. All right, what did he name here? Jade Light Ranger. And I mean, doesn't even have a great, like, no attack will actually be able to remove a Planeswalker.
No.
He knows Tamiyo is probably going to die anyway, so it looks like he wants to get an attack in with the Krasis.
Krasis does not look like a great blocker as well versus a 3/5 and a couple of 3/3s with another one on the way. And there's the Frilled Mystic off the top of the library, the Liz Wiz.
Yeah, so just even more security here now for Ken Yukihiro, having access to Frilled Mystic, Negate, and then, of course, the ability to potentially play an instant speed Mass Manipulation.
Oh, yeah, that's the warm fuzzies right there. That's the nothing can go wrong from this point. And Simon is now left to think about, is there anything he could have done differently? Because this one looks very good for Ken Yukihiro, putting Simon Gerson on the ropes.
Yeah,
We're double elimination and it's round one, but boy, no wiggle room for the rest of the day. That is stressful stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so far, Simon just in this tournament, very happy to be playing against all the different Esper variants. But anytime he kind of has faced one of the other 60% of the field decks, he struggled. You know, he lost to Simic Nexus, he lost to an aggressive white deck, and now it looks like Ken is getting him with this Bant ramp deck.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a pretty simple story to tell, right? I mean, this is a bigger, better ramp deck.
Right.
Right. This thing just has more powerful options at the top end and seems to be better at ramping as well. I don't know if that's typical, but at least in the games that we've seen, Ken has gotten out to a quicker start mana-wise. Now, you know, come on, we're analytical people here. We don't want to put too much emphasis on that. Simon did mulligan this game twice, so.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think this is probably a fairly close matchup.
Yeah.
And Simon just had poor draws in these games.
That's right. And that is Ken Yukihiro picking up the victory here in round number one. He went bigger. That was it, right? He had the bigger options, the bigger stuff, and we saw him close the door so quickly in game number two. That was the one that really impressed me because Simon had a reasonable draw that game. You know, they traded off elves or whatever it was, but all of a sudden, it was Tolsimir, and then there were Planeswalkers, and it felt like Simon, even with mana and a lot of spells in hand, really had no way to come back.
Yeah, I just feel like the story of, or even just how this matchup plays out, is just really who gets to ramp to their big threats first. And in both games, Ken was the one who had the Llanowar Elf into the mana creature, into the 5-drop first, and he was able to kind of snowball that lead.
That's right. Well, that is going to do it for round one here from Mythic Championship 3 in Vegas. We thank you for joining us. We're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be back right after this.
I'm Alexander Hain. I'm from Canada and member of the MPL. When I really got into Magic was college. Both my parents come from an academic background, so for them, success in school was number one. They didn't really understand. And then Saturday night of the Pro Tour, my mom got to meet me and the team at the event and ended up winning, and it was quite something. Since then, she's gone like full-blown fan of Magic.
My name is Carlos Romão. I'm former 2002 World Champion. I remember when I won my first invite to the Pro Tour, told my father, okay, so this is a professional Magic tournament. My father was like, you take like A grades on the school and then you can go. My family was always supportive since the beginning. Like without them, I wouldn't be able to be here. When I got the call, I heard, okay, so we're gonna sign you a contract. And I told my father, and he was so excited. I remember that my mother picked up the phone and said, oh, congratulations, son, blah, blah, blah. Without them, I couldn't achieve anything like on this game.
My name is Eric Froelich. I'm in the Magic Pro League and the Magic Pro Tour Hall of Fame.
It just so happened that my entire 5th grade class really just started getting into Magic. I wanted to go to the local game store. I went with my dad and we bought a nice little starter kit at the time. My dad ended up reading the entire rule book, teaching me how to play, and I played with my classmates. I ended up finding myself winning and advancing all the way to the top 8 and qualifying for the Pro Tour at 13 years old. And at that point, I was just fully immersed in wanting to go to every major tournament around me. And that's what I did. I was lucky enough to have really supportive parents who found a way to make sure everything I needed to go to, I was there.
I'm John Rolfe from Omaha, Nebraska. I've been playing Magic for about 15 years. I played Pro Tour Ixalan, which I thought was going to be my last Pro Tour, and I ended up top 4ing the whole thing. And so then it gave me this awesome opportunity, and I've always wanted to pursue this. Why not take a chance? And then I just kept winning, and now we're here. So when I got the call to join the MPL, at first I was just shocked. I had to think about it for a really long time, and Magic had been such a big part of my life that I had to at least see where the future goes. I mean, I didn't want to live with any regrets.
Be happy with his opening hand.
My name is Piotr Głogowski. I live in Poland, Poznań. I have been playing Magic since return to Ravnica. Before joining the Magic Pro League, I have been streaming MTGO. I hope that with the advent of the MPL and Magic Arena, I can expand on that. I'm certainly not going to leave the older formats that I love in the dust.
Draw 2, discard 2, and straight into the concession.
Wow.
Reed Duke
My name's Reed Duke. I'm a longtime professional Magic player, and I'm a member of the inaugural Magic Pro League this year. My older brother Ian and I learned to play together, and I started taking it real seriously once I was around college age, and I've been a pro for about 6 or 7 years.
Declare my attack, says Reed Duke. Autumn says, you got it, and scoops up.
I come from a tremendously supportive family, and my mother and I sort of have this joke that I'll come home and she'll say, how was the tournament? And I'll say, oh, well, I lost in the finals. Or she'll say, well, you're still a winner to me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to coverage of Mythic Championship 3. I'm Maria Bartholdi. That's Day 9. Hey, Day 9, some favorite moments for the morning for you?
Okay, we got to see the Friend of Wolves bust out. I loved that sideboard tech in the last match we got the chance to see. I mean, the Bant Ramp deck was way different than I thought, and it's so cool to see in the top 16 the uniqueness of the sideboarding plans.
Well, somebody who is very, very happy after getting a win off that he wasn't sure he was going to get is Brad Nelson. And we have reaction from him with Becca.
Thanks. That's right. I'm standing here with Brad Nelson. Brad, you just pulled off your first win because you came straight to day 2. How did it feel to win in what is a less than ideal matchup?
Yeah, when I saw the bracket today, I was a little nervous because there's a chance that I just played 2 bad matchups and I'm out of this tournament. Like, I've been sitting around here for like 2 days waiting to play, and then just 2 bad matchups and I'm out. But luckily, I was able to win games 2 and 3 against John. The matchup is really bad game 1, but after sideboard, I'm just a slight favorite. And game 3 was actually really interesting. I took a huge aggressive line, gave him a chance to look at 5 cards, and if none of them interact with me, I was able to Elder Spell Teferi on turn 7 and get an ultimate. So I was able to do that, and then the game was just elementary after that. But it was nervous because like everyone's already played. Like I felt like even though I came in, already in day 2, I felt nervous. I haven't played at the computers yet. I haven't been in this room. Really, I mean, I snuck in yesterday, but it feels good to have a win under my belt. Like I really did like just look at the bracket and I'm like, I might just lose 2 and I'm done in 2 hours.
Yeah, you got to have that warm up. You got to get a feel for the space, right?
Now we're good. Now I got my win.
And am I right that you've recently been uprooted and moved cross country with your bestie?
Yes. No, Brian and I did that. We both had bad matchups round 1. Luckily, I got mine, but he did not get his. But we're hoping to at least play a lot in the rest of the tournament. We were nervous about just coming in, losing, and just being out of the event. So.
Yeah. Well, what is it that you sideboard in that is so useful in that Esper Control matchup?
Are you working for these people? I'm not going to tell you.
Okay,
That's a
okay.
secret.
No, it's for my personal.
Yeah. Are you helping Shota?
It's for my ladder at home, okay?
I will get a sideboard guide out. Trust me. Don't worry.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for speaking to me, Brad. It's been really, really exciting to get to watch your play in the MPL Weekly, and we're all excited to see what you do in this top 16.
There's going to be top 4. There's going to be more.
Thank you so much, Becca. Yeah, you gotta wait for that sideboard guide. He's not just gonna give it out for free here, everybody.
As his boss of Star City Games, it won't be free.
Oh,
premium! Premium!
Content, yes.
Thanks!
And while we're at it, don't forget to smash that subscribe button,
That's
everyone
right.
watching on Twitch.
That's right.
Yes!
Well, we've got more magic for you before we head into round number 2. We've got another feature match that these two guys are going to call here. Budde versus Shahar Shenhar. That's Esper Hero versus Mono Red. We're going to see the highlights from that game right now. Really exciting stuff. Kind of the old guard of Magic versus the new. Take it away.
Couple of nobodies. Let's watch them play day 9. What do you think?
I mean, as always, being able to get a very strong opening up is essential because there's a ton of incidental life gain in a lot of the Esper decks.
There are a couple copies of Oath of Kaya and all that good stuff. Mono Red was a deck coming in that wasn't really that popular. It was like the best deck for a little while, and you kind of see why. The early interaction, the early plays, light up the stage, shock on Hero, Precinct 1. This is a really, really nice start for Shahar.
What an incredible opening. Double light up the stage and the Experimental Frenzy in hand just in case. And this is kind of some of the painful aspects of trying to remove against these 1-mana creatures with your 2-mana spells, and of course being stuck on 2 land. Kai's not looking too hopeful. Down to 8 health already.
And Shahar's got Experimental Frenzy in the holster just in case. You know, you see the Thought Eraser, it's got to take something that's not Experimental Frenzy, which means Experimental Frenzy can join the fray, and it's probably going to be too much to overcome if it ever hits the battlefield.
I mean, looks like Shahar Shenhar able to take a relatively clean, easy win to open. Going straight into game 2, again, the Gitu Lavarana and the double light up the stage Experimental Frenzy opening again. That's so insane.
Yeah, Kai able to slow it down a little bit, though, with that Tyrant Scorn on the Gitu Lava Runner. The goal here is to make it so, you know, essentially Shahar can never actually cast light up the stage for just the 1 mana. Would prefer for it to be the 3 mana. Bouncing via Sheena Pyromancer isn't ideal, but it'll work. Goblin Chain Whirler pretty nice here, though, taking care of Teferi Time Raveler.
Yeah, Goblin Chain Whirler is a very interesting one because it winds up having a lot of value against the 3-mana Planeswalkers that often wind up with 1 loyalty. Thought Erasure to nab up 1 light up the stage, but these are the 2 cards you don't want to see: Experimental Frenzy and light up the stage.
Yeah.
And pressure's continuing to mount.
Yeah, this is tough. You know, we're seeing a bunch of different, you know, beatdowns here from Shahar via Sheena Pyromancer now as well. These games have been just relatively quick and good draws for him. It doesn't look like Kai's deck is really geared towards beating Mono Red all that much, at least with the draws, because we do know he has Hostage Taker and Elite Guard Mage, but he just hasn't really found them yet.
You hate to have a D-Spark against Mono Red. You hate to have it.
I mean, it's nice against this particular card, and that's really about it. Hero Precinct 1's going to try to catch Kai back up a little bit here alongside Teferi Time Raveler. I'm not sure it's going to work because Kai's at a lowly 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's at this point that you really just kind of wind up waiting for those burn spells to show up to try to eventually pick off. And where's the Lightning Strike going to go? Well, Hero Precinct 1, of course, to try to remove the value.
Yeah, Lightning Strike coming off. We've got Kai at 4. Kai's going down to 2. It's a mountain. That means we got to get ourselves a top deck here. Runaway Steamkin's not exactly what the doctor ordered, but another counter on the Steamkin. This should be enough. Yeah, this should be good enough.
Yeah. I mean, this is really, I feel like, one of the tough spots to be in when you're Esper. Whether it's Esper Control, Esper Hero, you kind of go down to like 1 or 2 cards in hand almost immediately against Mono Red, and you have to have Oath of Kaya, some sweeper, some big stabilizing element. Otherwise, even if you get a little slowed down as Mono Red, yeah, you get 2-3 draws just to finish off your opponent at 2-3 health.
You got to remember, too, Kai has BBD and Brad Nelson's build of the deck, so Elite Guard Mage, which is good, but not Basilica Bellhunt, which is better, maybe costing him a little bit in that matchup. So big win for the 2-time world champion there in Shahar Shenhar.
Yeah, Shahar Shenhar moves on, and really a lot of the story of day 1 going into day 2 is, wow, look at all these Esper decks doing so well, but again and again and again, we've seen them kind of struggle, and Maria actually has the brackets with us to give us some updates on how all our players and Espers wound up doing.
Thanks, Day 9. Yeah, let's take a look at our brackets. We're going to kick things off with the upper bracket here as we head into round number 2. Now, these are all of our winners who are going to play big match here. Raphael Levy versus Jean-Emmanuel Duprat, both from France, both World Cup champions. So an excellent match to keep your eye on there. Shahar Shenhar versus Marcio Carvalho. Ken Yukihiro versus Matthias Leverato. And Shota Yasaoka versus Brad Nelson. Once again, Brad Nelson probably not going to be too happy with that matchup there. Esper Hero once again versus Esper Control. And we know he didn't like it round 1, but he won. So let's see if he can do it again. But what we're going to focus on actually is our lower bracket. And these are the people who have not managed to win their first match this day. So in the lower bracket, take a look. Ray Sato versus Greg Orange. Kai Budde versus Brian Braun-Duin. Simon Gerson versus Li Shitian. And Kentaro Yamamoto versus John Rolfe. Remember, if they lose, any of these people here that you're seeing right now, they are out of the tournament. That is what double elimination means. So everything is on the line for these players. And we're going to kick things off with a great feature match. Ray Sato versus Greg Orange. Let's hear more about it from day 9.
I'm really excited to see what Ray Sato is going to be bringing. I've been obsessing over the deck list from all the day 1 players, but Ray Sato, we haven't actually gotten the chance to see really play much at all.
Yeah, you know, the nice thing here for Ray is that he was able to win his split for the MPL going up against Greg Orange. So that means, of course, a bye right into day number 2 of competition, which really is really nice. We're seeing Brad Nelson, Brian Braun-Duin trying to take advantage of that as well, but going up against the Esper